Incremental readings. So I will continue with the reaction series. Now it's time for 1 year milestone. So, about 5 years ago, in August 2021. This one is interesting because it's the most watched video of my entire channel. It's about to hit 3,000 views. Yes, 3,000 is not much, but in my channel, it's a maximum. There are other videos from the official channel that they have 20,000 views and so on. Not in my case, even though it has been for about 4 years. In this case, I only have 3. 1 year milestone, experience and expectations, the stats. But then the stats, I split them between incremental reading collection and advanced English. So spoiler alert, once again, I split the collection. There's not much, it's just 5 minutes without counting the stats. And that is because there was nothing much new to say, because in the 8 months milestone was quite lengthy already. Okay, finally some comments. Oh, even in Chinese. Then I will do makes sense because I had more views. I will cover them later then. Let me first see the video. Oh, were you expecting incremental ratings? Today is a special because today my collection is finally 1 year old. You can see here I was 12 last year. Okay, I think I noticed already is that finally the stats window is on the left side, not the right side. Nice. Memorize items, I will need to compare, but since I have the stats video dedicated, I will wait. Just that the importance is that a lot has decreased, that the speed is 600 and the memorize per day is 6.7. That's because of a consequence of the split. Then I will park this and I will wait for the dedicated video. Then in this case I did the same, the bullet points, but I didn't explain much in depth, so it was in 5 minutes. Then, since I want to give the forgetting, before I watch the video once again, what I will tell myself from day one, I actually have a video more recently about this as well. Experience and expectatives, that is the title of the video. A question, did I master SuperMemo after a year? And sensation of progress with incremental reading. Let's see. It's hard to believe it's already 1 year. So I will ask those questions myself, in not particular order. Is that, did I master at SuperMemo? First, SuperMemo would say like languages. You don't never fully master a language, even if you're native and you're especially inclined on learning. Yeah, exactly. So there's nothing that you can check all of the boxes. Hey, I'm done, I mastered it. Like in a language. You can say you were fluent, you're native or native-like, but you never mastered the language, yeah. In that language, you will learn for... I would say my present self on the video, it's just a fluent user of SuperMemo. More or less that you will get from the Fluency course of the Proprietary Guide to SuperMemo, and a little more niche things, obscure things here and there, but more about the toolkit than the actual incremental reading. But the question is, did I master SuperMemo, not incremental reading? Therefore, I would say there slightly more than fluent, but not a master yet. Life, you will never master it, the language. You will be fluent, not master it. So we'll say no. Even today, you can see that I'm still incrementally reading SuperMemo documentation. Good to know, I split the glossary here. Glossary. So there are so many topics that I still haven't tackled yet. And something I would realize that something was not needed because let's see, registry window, then I realized that, hey, this is already part of another topic, another article. It's using a feature in MediaWiki that you couldn't put entire page inside another one. And I realized once I import the page that dedicated that, oh yeah, I already read this somewhere else.
Still 1 year in,
It's called an exclusion.
I am learning new things about SuperMemo. Oh, you can do that. Oh, you can do unit conversion. Oh, you can do the subset registry. I never heard of that. Or how to get rid of these, or something like that, right? Next is, if I could speak to myself back in day one last year, what I will tell to myself. So first, do a
backup. Okay, I already spoiled it. Oh my god.
backup solution with Git, GitHub, or GitLab, doesn't matter. Recent weeks, I'm using more than ever my laptop because now I can synchronize the progress on each computer. So what I have been increasing is the convenience to use SuperMemo because back then is, oh man, I will go only at home for use my desktop so I can use my collection today of SuperMemo. Okay, next will be the sensation of progress. Is okay, I have been incrementally.
Oh my god, there's a false sensation of fluency. That's because back then I was heavily editing my videos and I had the error that, hey, there's a long pause, let me edit the pause. But then I realized, hey, wait, I still need some pause that is natural, right? Because if I delete everything, then it's blah, 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 blah. There's never a pause. And it's actually harder to keep going the conversation as a listener. This apart. It's not my sauce. It's too surface. So at least what I tell myself at day one is take it incrementally. Don't worry about the performance, the results. Just get better than yesterday. Don't do much at once because this will backfire eventually. It will make your future harder to prioritize, to manage, blah blah blah, in many different layers, and which Nata is available, which is the possible guide to SuperMemo. And if you need further help, get tutoring.
Reading during a year, now with more fluency than before, but it's been any progress at all? Have I solved a problem? Have I learned a language? And so on. So for me, it's still too soon to make big statements.
Imagine, a year. 1 year. I'm missing very few days. And it's still too soon to draw conclusions that if I feel progress. And that's something not because of incremental reading. At some degree, yes. But it's because it's self-directed learning. It's harder to measure progress. And then because of its SuperMemo, it's also harder. If it was Anki, I could tell you stats and metrics. That they're useful or not is a different thing. We already discussed this in a previous milestone. But hey, I can tell you, I memorized 2,000 or 400 phrasal verbs or the vocabulary in that language, that other language, whatever. In SuperMemo, unless I have very strong conventions that I could quantify how many items are language items and for that language in particular, I don't know. I cannot tell you specific numbers because everything is all over the place. And I have language learning with incremental reading and yeah. And the items doesn't say how much I have learned. In SuperMemo, what I will realize is that it feels the opposite, that, hey, I'm doing a lot less than before, even though I put a lot more time. And that's not, it's a wrong interpretation. It's actually a good thing. Albeit I cannot measure the knowledge I gathered, I accumulated, at least I can tell that the quantity of items, flashcards, that are required to encode the knowledge is lower. And the number of repetitions by average is also lower. So I cannot tell you which number it is or how has increased by 20%, by 50%. What more or less I could say to compare what I did with Anki is that whatever I did with my life, it was a quarter. So you have all of the time you want to use Anki. Boom. Then next year you have all of the time you want to use SuperMemo. Whatever that is. Absolute freedom. Meaning there's no cap by time. It's because, oh, I'm wasted and I don't know what anymore, whatever. Then, having said that, if I compare both, I can tell you that more or less what I did in SuperMemo is usually, grosso modo, a quarter of what I did in Anki. Meaning, I could retain the same retention rate, or even higher, depends on the collection, but higher than in Anki, with less than a quarter of the time. Of the repetitions, time commitment, effort, and so on. At some degree, it's just because of incremental reading. Doing the repetition myself, creating the item myself through incremental reading. This is already, you win a lot with this already. Because of interleaving, micro and micro interleaving, both, especially the micro, especially that you keep changing every few seconds, not even minutes. Just because of this. And then because of the algorithm, that once I feel I lapse after a year or 2 years, it's better to deduce when I'm going to forget once again. Unlike in Anki, that it will be next day, once again. So I remember, a grosso modo, that it was a quarter. That, oh wow. That means if I have done 100,000 repetitions, something feasible to do in a year, by the way, in my past self, now I'll only do 25,000. That will be only on the dimension of repetitions. But again, it is not like this, because the time commitment was also lower. But let's wait for the numbers in the next video.
What I do now is I work on a problem incrementally. So I'm doing several things at the same time.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing. I didn't realize that. Exactly. So even though I work in different problems that are long term, especially the ones that I need to code, and this predates AI with language models, that, oh yeah, let me do it incrementally. And I got the solution. Just that the natural time has been longer. Instead of 2 weeks, have been 3 months. But if I track the time, the active time that I work on, it's lower. To simplify, 2 weeks. But I put 4 hours. Not every day, but some days I put 4 hours, and any other day I put 1 hour, right? So I put about, 25 hours overall. Boom. And I solved the problem. Now in SuperMemo, after a year, hey, I need 3 weeks, 3 months, about 100 days, right? But the time overall is 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 10 minutes there, none, 2 minutes. I sum everything and I get 6 hours. I need more iterations, more interruptions, but the time commitment would be about a quarter of what I would have needed, more in a more linear, continuative fashion. So it's a win-win. My message is that don't take this just as recalling flashcards and that's it. But no, it's applying this as problem solving was also, rule of thumb, a quarter. So albeit longer in natural natural time. Oh my god. Albeit longer in natural time, the time dedicated was always at maximum a quarter.
Focusing now on pronunciation and accent reduction with English. Then getting rid of fossilite errors with English that I also have. Then building up my own website with PHP and so on. I'm incrementally working on that. So yes, I have the sensation that I'm progressing. And I like to quote what the flashcard guy said in one of his...
Before quoting, every victory is permanent, yeah. I should remember. It's a very good quote. Exactly. So even though I cannot put numbers before and after, and that's the percentage has increased, whatever, If I backtrack 1 year ago or 6 months ago, oh yeah, I feel some progress. I did this, I did that, I solved this issue, I realized this, but I cannot I cannot quantify that. That is what the message.
Videos. Amazing, by the way. You do small steps, very small steps, but each step is permanent. Small victories, but each victory is permanent. Habits are acquiring with SuperMemo. It's not rush at all. It will come, eventually. And man, it's so pleasurable because I'm interliving, as you can see.
Let me pause here. Exactly. That's one of the things that I mention usually to the tutorees, that they aim at the long term. What I mean long term, it's years or even above a decade. Long term. And then I can say whatever you want. I can tell you all of the golden nuggets you want from the course that, oh wow, good to know, this is extremely useful. You could know all of this. But if you aim for the long term, what you need to work on is on the habits. Like you could do all the rule of thumbs that you want for prioritization. All the ins and outs, pros and cons, every scenario, every, let's say, heuristic there is, or a flow or convention, the pros and cons of each one of those, you could learn all of this through the course. But hey, the most important thing is not knowing what to do, is to get the habit to do it. That when you do one repetition, or whatever you load an element in the element window, which not necessarily is through a repetition, you know when to take a look. First, a look at the priority, then assess or reassess the priority, and then modify it. It becomes second nature because it becomes a habit in the long term. So in order to do this, let's say, so artificial step of priorities, artificial in the sense also of explicitness, you do it. It is a habit. So even if you work on the long term, don't expect this to happen in a year. So you will have learned everything that you need about priorities in a cognitive, conceptual level. That is not enough to make it a habit. It could be some examples, doesn't apply to me, but many people are used to drink coffee. You don't think, I will drink coffee today? No, you have the habit of drinking coffee, right? So you will actually automate the stuff that, hey, I'm not thinking to do the coffee now or whatever. It is unconscious already, right? Especially if you do it after a meal, you will have the habit to do the coffee with a machine or whatever you do, or if you use the capsule or whatever, to eat after the meal. You created the habit. And with this habit is the association. After the meal, I will have the coffee. Or at this time of the day, I will have the coffee, whatever. Translate this of something that is more oftenly done, is not that you do several times a day or once a day, something you do at each repetition. Usually, if you have used Anki, what you're used to show the answer, check your recall, and assess the difference with a grade. You're not thinking, hey, is this, you already know the heuristics you use and so on. It's just adding this layer of priority. I'm not reassessing the recall, the quality of the recall, but the priority of the element. This is one example. There are others. Yes, I mentioned priorities because it's like the final boss, we could say. There are others that to get used to the incrementalism. That yeah, you have the text is there, but not because you have access to you will read everything in one go.
Chemistry with Chinese culture, not the language, but the culture. There's a slight overlap with the language. Also about neuroscience, memory, also linguistics, philosophy and stoicism, and psychology. Also,
by the way, do you see still a combination of concepts and folders?
About the schooling, the bowling, and so on.
That's what I like So if it was not because of technical reasons, I will only use one single collection. And if it was with a better user experience, that I could do incremental writing, incremental reading in the same collection, so that the flow will be different for incremental writing. So I don't need other collections. It will be massive, because always the pain to have different collections, like I do now, is that I lose some interleaving. Gives the cost that you pay to have different collections. That's why, to simplify, once I will have SuperMemo 20, and I have recorded all of my projects, so I'm no longer sharing my screen with SuperMemo. I'm done with this. Or only, hey, what's new with SuperMemo 20, 21, whatever. So I'm not going to feature my collection anymore. Then I will have my own collection with all of the private stuff and all of the oaks that I take out so it doesn't appear in my screen and all of this. And I will have a full-fledged experience with all of the interleaving I want.
Software, even writing, because I plan to write some books, incrementally, of course.
Yeah, incrementally, brother. Yes, I have been writing quite a lot, in some sense, because of the course. The bullet points you see, and that only is the final part. There's more. Well, I don't make my mind. I don't sort. The drafts. And some other stuff that you don't see yet in the videos. Yes, I have written quite a lot, but not in the sense that it's ready to publish. So most of what I have written is not yet published because it's, again, incremental. So instead of having, let's say, 10 articles that are ready to be published, I have 100 that are 20% baked. It does make sense. One of the things I want to do is to focus on incremental writing, but SuperMemo doesn't do a good job. And now that I'm transitioning to Obsidian, Notion to Obsidian, I will try some add-ons, and I will try to do incremental video and incremental writing. And I will have this process on my channel. If it's worth it to share that, I will cover it. But the SuperMemo, I do it for the course, content from the course itself, as a meta, and that's about it, not as a user. So this is an expectation that I have to do incremental writing in SuperMemo, that because of the poor, unlimited implementation and the lack of updates for decades, since I use SuperMemo, there has been no feature or bug about incremental writing at all. I cannot do. There are references as what you import as a loading app, but I cannot do citations or manage this or use Zotero or a third-party tool like Obsidian. This is a major thing. The spell checker and many things that I can only do bolding, italics, some like this, bullet points, and that's about it. And even knowing what will be in SuperMemo 20, at the time of the recording, I can still not share with you. It will be some improvement, finally, after 2 versions, after 8 years, but nothing that justifies using it.
Course. Did I met my expected when I started? Because I don't know what I will get, it's just, I know what's left in my sped repetition experience. Is try incremental reading. I tried everything at that point. Look!
Yeah, exactly. So I was desperate with Anki, using many apps, one for ebooks, one for PDFs, with a browser to see the websites that I already imported, could we say, stuff like this. It was a complete nightmare, maintenance heavy to the point that it's become my full-day job. I cannot do it, and even if my ethics say no to the proprietary software, because that meant not just to move back to Windows against my will, but to use SuperMemo, that is closed source. I was so desperate that I did that little change. And then here you can see, at that time, I have 2,905 comments in the SuperMemo community, and I joined July 2028. The collection is about 2 weeks older, 2 weeks later after this. Yeah, hello SuperMemo community. I will present you a kind of a long read. I love your thoughts opinion. And you can see this is not, it's marked down, that didn't work well as plain text. And you see what I want to do. After 10 years of Anki, I want to switch completely to use incremental reading, da da da. William Palace. Oh my god. 2,905 in a year. 1 sec. Let me double check now, even though I know that some channels have been deleted or archived, meaning that my comments on those the messages on those channels doesn't count. There are still some, I think, in the archival. Yeah. Okay. Can you take a guess? From 15,693. In the first year, 3,000. So more or less I kept the pace. By average, about 3,000 messages per year. Yep, about that. About 10 messages per day since joining. Every single day, 10 messages by average. It's quite a lot. It's quite a lot. Of course, I didn't send messages every single day, but some days more than 20 to compensate. So I have been active for most of the time since I joined. And the community was created the same year, a few months before, that I actually read everything since day one anyways.
On my left side of the screen, it's Discord, and I'm filtering my own comments across this last year I did since when I joined it, SuperMemo server, the SuperMemo wiki community server. And look, I joined it back in 28th of July. And here I read the wiki extensively, the official wiki, and here I was
Imagine, I already read Wikipedia, most of the guru than the help, of course, but extensively. I actually did some Anki flashcards for that. So I started before this. And when the reading was enough that, okay, I'm convinced, let me try. My message is that I didn't have any expectation to convert. First, not to use SuperMemo for real. That, okay, I will do this project like other people, after a while, I move on, keep using Anki. Not that I will keep using SuperMemo, it's that I will convert to the point that in Anki I only do what I cannot do in SuperMemo, which is a very specific thing. And what I will have been doing in Anki from now on, I will do it in SuperMemo. I didn't expect that at all. At all. I didn't know the extreme power of spaced repetition, the incremental power of incremental reading. And most of my pain points that I was suffering with Anki were solved because of incremental reading. It is what I was missing. As simple as that. And I have an analogy. So this year, in April, in 3 months, it's already February, okay. Oh wow. Then in 2 months, oh my god, in only 2 months, I will get married. After more or less a decade of meeting my girlfriend. It was in 2006. Why? What's the connection you may think of? That when we met, I have no expectations at all. I was in a place that I lost my job, or I was about to lose it. Yeah, so is that you're not going to get your contract renovated, so you are still there, but you know that once it's about time, and when this expires, you're out, and you don't come next year. It was this situation. So I was still employed, but it was a death sentence already. But hey, the PhD that later I give up, and everything that I sacrificed. So it was a very obscure moment of my life, and I didn't want any attachment, anything that. So eventually, is yeah, let me meet some people. I had no expectation not to get late. So depends on the culture that you are, but not that. I just don't want to be alone and repeat the same thought over and over, right? More or less. So it's yeah, whatever. So I was not looking for anything particular, just socializing, let's say. Anything. Absolutely open to anything. And turns out that when I had zero expectations, and the opposite, that I'm just here to kill some time, just to kill the thoughts. So I have this meeting a new person, having a meal or whatever, so I don't think about that, and that's about it. That was my expectation. I would not have thought that I will meet my future wife at that moment. And it's because precisely this. Because I had zero expectations. I was not expecting anything from the other person at all. That was what I needed to do. I don't know if it's kind of contradictory or paradoxical, but this is what you need. This is what I did with SuperMemo. Is that I don't give a shit. I don't expect anything. This is BS. He only wants to sell his product in his wiki, And when I try it on my own hands, my own skin, is oh wow, oh wow. To the point that I consider that it changed my mind. My mind, yes, but it changed my life forever. Incremental reading. SuperMemo is just a tool that implements that. Itself, once again, oh my god, it saved my life. I will have went to the other side of the coin, keep grinding, doing more. I mean, I already had 3 masters and 2 bachelors. Keep grinding with more and more and more. The rat race, and do the PhD. Before finishing the PhD, if everything went right, I was already planning for a second PhD when I was not even finished with the first one. What the F is this mentality, right? So now I will be in the academia, extremely, extremely burnout, with no purpose, just numbers, and not really enjoying, just accumulating papers. And that's about it. So, that's a golden nugget. When you have zero expectations, you're not waiting for anything in return of what you do. Is the better mindset, the best mindset you can have, because you're free of attachment. Because oh no, I do this, so I'm putting a lot of effort. I don't know, for instance, in paying tuition fees because I won the certificate in exchange. The certificate will signal to the academia that hey, I have this that is it's super hard to get, or I have more credits than you, or whatever you want to measure. Which in reality is, hey, this is proof that I wasted a lot of money, time for nothing. And the time I could have enjoyed dating, meeting with friends, or just playing video games, or when Netflix doesn't have to be with our people necessarily. I did this. That oh yeah, I'm a PhD while I work one full-time job, another job in remotely, and 1 master degree, and with honors, all at once. But at which cost, right? That's why I had the huge expectations. That's why I was doing all of this at the same time. And when I was, so after I have seen that, hey, that is not translating of, I'm not meeting my expectations at all. Then my evaluation changed and, fuck it. Let me do it now because I have time. Just because I have time. So, if I will not have time and be unemployed, I will not have done this. And I started a YouTube channel to do this experiment. I had zero expectations, like in the channel. My intention was not to run a channel, and now I will reach 1,000 videos after more than 5 years, and having had created literally hundreds of hours of material, edited footage for SuperMemo and other stuff related to that. Never in my life I will have had this expectation. But it's the experience. That's why until you don't do it, you cannot make this decision. Because now that I am on the mat and my hands dirty, is, oh wow, that's super different of what I thought first, or now makes sense. Now I do understand. I want to read the documents that Piotr Wozniak sounds like a cult leader. It makes sense, it's super obvious now. But I needed to put a lot of effort at the beginning to do incremental reading. And this has changed in a transformative way. The incrementalism, that now is I will say that eventually, perhaps a year and a half milestone, I don't know, that hey, now this is in my lifestyle, in my hobbies, in even relationship with other people, incremental. The point is not to lose that friendship. But hey, it doesn't have to be every single day, every other week, or whatever, but to keep that, right? You want some iteration, and so on. The same with anything, incrementalism. I don't want to extend with this. I have a video dedicated for that. Actually, we will see it as a reaction, anyways. But the golden nugget is that when you have zero expectations, is when you can be surprised.
Presenting one project I had was recording my own experience, the raw footage, right? And here it is. I did even the extract, the plan. You can tell that's an overkill already. Who I am, and so on. But look at the dates. August 2nd. It's longer than that. How's that it's not the same day? It's because this collection is not from today one. Have I made my expectative?
Expectation. Yeah, and I'm not sure if it's like this in English, because this is a translation of Spanish that sounds a lot better. And I remember that one tutor was from Australia said, "Oh wow, you remind me of someone else that was, I think, from a Spanish-speaking country, Colombia, I think." That she said that it's a weird construction. Oh yeah, it's because it's a little translation from Spanish. I still remember that. The weird case that is a woman. You know, the tutorees are usually male. That's why it's a lot easier to remember for me as well.
With SuperMemo, for sure, and way beyond what I could imagine on day one. Absolutely beyond. If you are watching this video and you still haven't tried SuperMemo, let me tell you, it's way more than speed repetition, and it's way more than you can think of. What is incremental reading, and so on.
Yeah, it's not just a method. You could say it's a learning method, or a collection of methods or techniques, but then it's so deep and so ingrained that you think this way, and you can extrapolate it to anything you do, not just the learning. So you could apply for instance, the macro rules, the incrementalism for tasks management or goal setting in your life. Transcends SuperMemo. So how do I perceive? It's like, for instance, now, weekends doesn't have the same meaning as before. Because before, I was renting my time to do something I hated, but I considered it was necessary to become what I wanted and have a tenure and all of this. So to have a guaranteed job position until retirement with a pretty good salary to work in the university as a lecturer, which is still true. So today I still do agree with this definition. You get 3 or 4 times minimum wage. The longer you keep, the more you will earn. So then it will be 4 or 5 times the minimum wage. So you don't have to worry about I will lose my job or if I have to pay rent. that disappears. The questions will be, I don't do what I want, it doesn't make sense, the students doesn't give a shit about the content. It will be different kind of issues, right? I said that for what, sorry?
You have to try. And more than you can think of. What is incremental reading?
Exactly. So now I'm happier than ever. Even back then, in those some milestone, when I lost my job in the university because of COVID, I was on my lowest, economically my worst of my life. That some months I could not even get toilet paper because no, it's not payday. I need some more days, and I don't have even $1 or euro. I'm literally zero. I reached that point, but I was happy because hey, I have a place, I have a computer, a potato PC, but a computer, and very old, but connection to the internet, and I can do free learning. I was hooked with free learning. To the point that, oh yeah, I know, but I'm using my learning to get out of this misery, right? Now I'm not there. I don't have the stability that I will have at the university. I work in a startup, so my job is not guaranteed if the numbers in the company doesn't succeed. So you always have this, oh, what if? It's not the same that, I know I will retire here. Unless I commit a felony, I go to prison, I will retire here. But that doesn't have a price. So now you put me, what do you want? The old objective, goal, to get a tenure track in the university without discovering incremental reading, only spaced repetition, or today? There's no. It's a no-brainer. I would prefer instability, lower income, but absolute freedom of mind and absolute pleasure every single day. As long as it's enough to eat, I don't complain. It will be nice to earn more money, absolutely, and to have more savings, or pay at least enough so I don't have to worry about mortgage every single month. Yeah, it will be nice, but not nicer than incremental reading or incremental learning.
And so on. You have to try. And even though when you tried several months in, which it's already a huge deal, it's just the surface. It's been a year, and I still haven't really used Neural Review. And I think I will need more time to really make a meaningful use of it. So it's been a ride.
3 years more.
But it's been so enjoyable and so unexpected. Wow. I will...
Oh, it's so sad because of the editing. It looks like it's the same sentence, but this is already from a different thought. That's... If you don't know me, that could be easy. YouTube is impressed. What I said, sorry, the keyword?
Never. But it's been so enjoyable and so unexpected.
Enjoyable, you already know that. But it's unexpected. So imagine, that's proof that even extensively reading the Wikipedia, so many articles about the same topic, the same subject, from the same author, about incremental reading, learning, all of this paradigm, wasn't enough. I needed to do it on my own skin. I have to experience it. My brain has to experience this. Because, yeah, I can understand it as a quantitative perspective. A, B, B, C, A, then C, all of this follows a logic. Okay, I understand. But you don't see the true power until you don't try it yourself. And that's the sad part. Because if I want to introduce more people to incremental reading or incremental learning, it's a tough sell. Because, yeah, you have to put effort. It's like always the example I put. It's weight loss, but even harder. So are you telling me I have to change what I like to eat? I have to make exercise. I have to do exercise, and I won't see anything meaningful until a month, let's say. Wow. So a lot of effort, a lot of new rules, a lot of breaking habits, new habits to acquire. And what's like incremental living? Old habits, die hard habits you want to get rid of. Until you don't do this, you won't see the benefits. It's a really hard thing to sell. Even if the software, I think it's completely free because you can use SuperMemo for free. And you have all of the course for free if you want. So you could have this with expending $0, absolutely for free. It's only time, commitment, and motivation. But the golden nugget is that you can have zero experience, but 100% expectations. But this expectation is killed in minutes. So you will need, let's say, willpower or faith until you don't see this, you experience it yourself. This is why it's so easy to give up while overlooking the benefits. I see this every day in Twitter. A lot of people who say that this is BS or it's not useful or it's even worse than just a spaced repetition is because they have given up way too soon. The expectation has decreased or plummeted, but the experience didn't compensate that.
Wow, I will never have guessed that in my life. I will share more things about 1 year milestone. And finally, one last thing is that
I'm assuming into your other videos, okay?
I will start offering the service of tutoring because...
Oh yeah, I remember I started tutoring with 1 year. And I waited. So I generally waited to, hey, I have these already prepared for my website, but I will make it public on the milestone to be round, like to celebrate. Hey, it's been a year, let me do. And you may think, hey, it's quite early. As I said before, I was more than fluent already. I also keep in mind that I think that is not incremental reading, but is spaced repetition. I had back then 12 years of experience. Not just that, is that I already had years of experience, not as a user, but as a tutoree with Anki, as a tutor with Anki. So this is already a plus. But I still waited 1 year. And when I started, it's true, but most of the time it was, well, all of the time, basically, it was an open rate. And some people is, yeah, let's do it for free. It's okay, since it's the beginning, I will do it. I will do it for free. But later is, bro, I cannot even pay toilet paper, and I'm full with my time, so I will put a limit, a minimum, I think it was 15, and then incrementally, I have increased that minimum. And today, 4 years later, 4.5 years later, I think, yeah, it's now set at 40 euros, which is it's a bargain. A bargain. If you see other creators, and I see their level of expertise, they are charging more. A lot more. Not necessarily for SuperMemo, I mean Anki as well. And wow, they could even charge 3 times more per unit of time than I do today. And the expertise level, I know that is not the same. So usually what I experienced, so if I will hire myself, is that it's a bargain. An absolute bargain. What you get for just one session and the follow-ups, wow, an absolute bargain.
If you noticed, it's been a while since I stopped doing the outro. So I don't spam anymore the Patreon and so on.
I didn't spam the Patreon because from now on I didn't put it in. And then from what I was already, as I said, what was already there, I just cut it through the built-in censor tool.
Because it's pointless. I have been spamming the Patreon for months, for, I don't know, 10 months. And
yeah, basically. And as you have seen the video this year, that I shut down Patreon, and the overall earnings so since 2020 until 2026 were in the hundreds. And on top of that, I had to pay tax. The tax was preemptively, even if I really didn't pay tax at all, in reality, because I didn't had to, based on my quantity, it was taken out preemptively. So I pay taxes without paying taxes, without being required to pay the taxes. And the fees is bro. What I could do in a week, if I had enough tutories to continue every day, I could do this in a week.
No one joined it, so why keep trying?
Exactly. And then on top of that, one of the compensations was a tutoring session that now I do through Soki, the company, the startup. That is, I can provide voting powers, more instant feedback, early access, and that's about it. So imagine if people had time with me and still was not useful, was not I didn't succeed. Imagine without it. That's why from now on I will have paid staff, paid collections, for the course convenience at the end of the day. So it's no longer a donation. You get something in return, even though these files are very easy to share between people. But yeah, at the end of the day, it will be the same, a donation, because you could get it from other people sooner or later.
This doesn't work. So what I will do, as other people do in the community, is doing tutoring sessions. So I will drop the link on my...
Yeah, it's true. At that time, I know two people. I will not say the name just in case. It's not relevant now for the point. I will say two people. One person I will not hire myself, knowing what I know. And the other is, oh yes, but very technical, for the technical staff only, not for the soft skills necessarily. And the other, well, during the transition when I was quite noob, but later on, even actually I wanted to, I could not afford it economically. They just said, oh, let me know how it is and so on. That didn't happen, I went, ever. But then I realized, wait, I think there's no margin. It's like, hey, let me see how you do it, to see your style of tutoring, but not because as a tutor myself, not as a learner. That hey, I don't know how to do this, or let me know how you do it. Stuff like this. But okay, I digressed. What I want to say is that there were other people offering tutoring, and after a while, I was the only one. And I had the M for tutoring in my name, not anymore. And also it's because I have been alone, because those people were also active in the other channel, the SuperMemo wiki, but it's been inactive for 4 years. So eventually, at least that is advertised online, I think I'm the only one who does this. Yeah, Master How to Learn also did this, here and there. He also moved on. That's why I could say that I have very little competition here. It's very niche, I'm not going to lie. SuperMemo tutoring is extremely niche. I can do 1-2 sessions a week. Sometimes I think my record were 4 sessions in 3 days. It just happened, the schedule was like this. It was after some event, I don't know what happened, anniversary event or something like this, that there was like a more wave. But usually, it's 1-2 people a week. And if there are more sessions, it's because it's someone who is repeating the sessions. That's why, not because of this, because also I always wanted to be more global, not just SuperMemo. Hey, can be other learning tools, and just the paradigm of self-directed learning, not just how to use this software, how to use this other software, or a combination of softwares. Yes, I can do that, the technical aspect, but more the high level. Hey, I have been in academia. I have been cramming for medical school. Now I want to learn by myself. Where do I start? More coaching kind of stuff, which I did, but not enough. Because once I do it, this person doesn't need me anymore, right? So I will have new people every single time that they become self-taught and self-directed. If you do this right, they don't need you after a while. That is the definition of success. If you didn't need me anymore, means I have accomplished my goal. But as a business, that doesn't scale. I hope that's what I want to achieve with the Soki website. If you go to the tutoring, you end up here, and then to book a session is here using this link. It goes directly. This is bypassing some of the pages, but basically, find your path. That, hey, I want to achieve my learning goals or learning tools. This is what it will be more like SuperMemo, Anki, whatever, or just enjoying itself. That it's boring because of what I have been doing in the school. I want to restore my land drive. Or it's just efficiency. That, hey, I already got the basics and so on. I want to take it to the next level. But I'm not lost, right? Or something else that could, whatever could be, that doesn't fit the main criteria. Because I really enjoy tutoring. So sometimes that, hey, this week in particular, there's no session, is, oh, damn, there's no session. Also, to be honest, what I enjoy the least would be brand new users. So they start from scratch, day zero, and so on, because it's very repetitive. Just for a while, it's a lot different because they have different goals, different personalities, different interests, and then the dynamic changes. But that first session, what will be more different, is like, is not creative for me. Luckily, that doesn't happen anymore. Now it's really rare because they just have the videos for free. So it's just people that, okay, I know I have it for free, but I want a fast track. I want convenience since day one. That's people who usually have more budget, they can do it, and so on. But yeah, at least before shooting, I will leave the video here. The other two, I will do it some other day. It's still February 1st. I already reacted to the previous video, so I have shot on 3 hours today. I will leave it here, but I didn't want to stop until covering this message. That for me it's not a full-time job. I will not like this to be full-time because it will be very taxing, draining. And also, because of the time, it will be like a 9-to-5 job because I have to be, the meetings are synchronous, meaning I will have more restrictions to do what I want during the day. I'm like, hey, you have this task to do by the end of the day. Yes, I can do it right after. I can nap, do it later after the nap. I can do some interleaving. If it's face-to-face, face-to-face through the internet, yeah, it's from 3 to 5 or 5 to 6. You know what I mean? A few hours is okay, but the entire workload to be fixed, it will take a lot. It will take a toll for me. That's why 2, 3, 4 hours a day is enough, and I would like to keep it like that. But just for SuperMemo, that doesn't happen. There was the golden era that I had, 10 hours a week for a few months of tutoring, but not anymore. But the thing is that I'm sad for this. That's why I seem sad, because this saddens me that are not much new people who engage with SuperMemo. Are already people who tried off and on multiple times. They already knew the software before they knew me, basically. And every time it's harder to introduce people to SuperMemo. Not because they hire me or not, it's they get introduced to the software. I also know that the sales are going downhill, are slowing down, because I see the IDs with my affiliate link. That's why I know that with my affiliate link, that is one to many. Everyone who gets the license key through my link, I get a small chunk. This is even less of what they get through tutoring. So imagine. That's why I wanted to always have this as a side job kind of thing, but always present. Because it's also very rewarding. And you see always different flows, different ways to use the tool that, oh, I would have never tried this myself. Or, I mean, I have the notion, so I do understand this flow, but then I see collections that someone has used this flow consistently for years, and I see the outcome of this. Wow, it's or hey, based on your case, it's like medical and medicine that based on your symptoms they get a diagnosis kind of thing. More or less like this, that hey, based on your goals, your motivations, your pain points and requirements, hey, that's one of the suggested recommendations for you. One of the suggested flows from you, like that this is the treatment, if it was a disease. This kind of thing, the puzzle, and hey, if you, that's because it's long term, therefore you could afford that, and oh no, you don't want this, so therefore that will not compensate in the long term. Based on this, I want to do elsewhere. I don't want to say something concrete. So all of this puzzle, I really enjoy it as well. So if you really stretch it, if I will see no person, and the person only texts me through text, it will be like this. It will be like really cold experience. I could still enjoy it in the sense of this puzzle thingy. So I could convey the idea of what I mean. And also when I see humans, so literally, because when I shoot videos, I don't see anyone. And if you can see the reactions, most of the videos that are old, they didn't have comments at all. And by the way, now I just realized that I had comments in this video.
On website, so you can schedule a session with me related to SuperMemo, incremental reading, learning, video, whatever you want. As long as I am able to, I will help you.
As long as I'm able to, exactly. Sometimes when I ask, hey, what do you want to do? Is A, that's above my grade, or A, I can do this and that, but at this point, I have this limitation. Because, for instance, I say Burnout. Okay, I know the pros and cons, how you will do it, what you will lose if you don't do in SuperMemo, but I'm not able to help you at these degrees in Remnote because I only have done dummy sessions, but I like the continuous use of daily usage through decades is true, 3 years. So this depthness is lacking in some other software. Okay, comments. Awesome, thanks for this. Super awesome. This is concise. Yeah, concise is because of the editing and 5 minutes. And now what I'm doing is the opposite. It's too verbose, perhaps. So what I will do from now on, once I finish the SuperMemo thingy, SuperMemo videos, is the middle ground. Something more in depth, but not that, 40 minutes, 2 hours, what you're doing with my time. Small steps, permanent, incrementally, it will come eventually. That's the response to each step is a victory, and each victory is permanent.
It will come eventually. And man, it's so...
No, then no. It will come eventually. Yeah. Cheers on you. You can really be proud of you. Your enjoyment shines in your videos, and you're helping and welcoming in Discord too. Yeah. Not because I reply or interact to every single message I get in SuperMemo in my YouTube channel. It's in the SuperMemo community as well. Through the years, since as I joined. So, this pleasure always carries on as a viewer. Yeah, you can also notice here the enthusiasm. Because here I was not worried how I pronounce this, how I pronounce that. Is okay, if I do mistakes, I will review them on the editing and iterate on that. But I was more focused on what to say, not what to say as a narrative. Not, hey, I want to say this, therefore in English is this verb. Okay, translating like I was doing at the beginning. And then because of the editing, it looks like more dynamic because I have edited all of the silences without leaving a human silence, because this is not possible to speak like I do with no interruption, like a machine. Next. Thank you for your effort. Keep up the good work. P.S. Your pronunciation improved noticeably, and now it's much easier to understand your videos for non-native English speakers. Thank you. That was 4 years ago. Imagine. 1 year milestone, right? Yeah. So I said, what was the word I misstressed? Commenting instead of, or comment, or not comment instead of comment. I think that was the word. That, oh, it sounds off. You can still understand because there's no such word that exists. There's comet with T, but you will just do, ooh, it sounded weird, but you could still catch up what I meant. But yeah, you can see already with a year, even though I was not consistent with videos, that perhaps I didn't have these, they were shorter first, or they were in the span of once a week, 3 or 5, 6 a month, and later I released more videos. Now, for instance, the reaction videos are several hours long, and I publish 1 or 2 a week. So the footage I record or I publish as a consequence versus natural time is higher, meaning I'm doing more speaking than what I did before. But again, since I was a noob, the progress has been a lot greater because, I had a huge room of improvement. I can still improve, of course, but the room of improvement is narrower. That means that yes, you can still notice, I hope, in a few years, if I continue to do videos, some progress comparing to today. So feel free, if you have watched the video until here, what I have mispronounced, what is your feedback? That, hey, work on this, work on that, that doesn't sound right, that I can understand you, but it sounds unnatural, even if it doesn't impede the comprehension.
So pleasurable because
Next, Con. You are as viral as ever. Virile, this means like masculine as ever. Having strength, energy, and a strong sex. Okay. Could I summarize because of the same? Here, let me check again. I think the placement is American already.
because I'm interleaving, as you can see, chemistry with
Not here.
Chinese use of it. So it's been a ride, but it's been so enjoyable.
It's been a ride. It's been a ride. I will say this because now I'm listening to my YouTube, not to my microphone, so I cannot check the voice in real time now. It's not there still. I will not call it American placement. That is down here, but still is that it's low pitch and it's I talk fast, like more energetic kind of thing. That's what I'm getting from the comment. That is more like, oh wow, it's not that, hey, today I did this, I thought this. It's, oh no, today I thought about this, da 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 da. More in this aspect. I may assume that this guy is, yeah, I think it was from East Europe, so it's not native. At the time of the milestone, yeah, that's also a thing. Great video, thanks for sharing. Then this is 10 years. Aha, that's great. SuperMemo is a fantastic learning tool. I have been using it for 3 weeks now. Okay, that's rather short. And I have not imagined I have a chance to encounter it. You're learning about the Chinese culture. I hope you fall in love with the culture of the ancient civilization. Yes, I actually imported was an EPUB about the culture. It was the other way around. So it talked mainly about the culture and a side effect, some vocabulary, not the other way around. That for the vocabulary, since it's very ingrained to the culture, you need some culture tips here and there. So it makes sense, the word or stuff like this. Anki, but with a better algorithm and horrible UI. Okay, that's an example of a comment that doesn't have anything to do with what I say. And it's usually the sentiment of, because I shared this on Twitter, on Reddit. Usually this makes sense of people who don't use it. Now it's not even this, because now with FRS advertisement, they will believe Jared in the sense that it's better. When what they're comparing cannot be, it's not the metric of the algorithm uses, and the algorithm optimized for a different thing. They cannot be compared at all. SM2 can be compared, but not SM15, 16, 18, 19, or 20. But regardless of that, they will say that it's better only on 16 collections. So anecdotal evidence, basically. The point is that now they will say Anki, but not with a better algorithm and a horrible UI. Horrible UI, okay, I get it. Better algorithm, yes. And today, against FRS, yes, as well. But it's not Anki, my friend. Anki is just a piece of the iceberg. If you say this comment, it's because you haven't watched anything of this video. I don't need to reiterate myself, but you have the entire learning process. Anki is after the learning process has finished, you do the flashcards to remember what you decided of what you have learned. This is not Anki. It's a lot more than that. A lot more. It's like saying that this fingernail is the same as a hand. Well, it's part of the hand, a tiny part. So this concludes this video, and next day I will do the other two with the stats. Incrementally. Incremental greetings. Yet another day. Now for me it's February 7th, Saturday. So I will continue with the first video of stats after the year milestone. Two comments. Good go through. I have a note from it. Nice to know. Nice, that's the purpose. Exactly, the milestones it's not just vanity. Hey, look at what I have done. It's so you can learn from my mistakes, my decisions, and so on. And that was helpful. This weekend I was just wondering how to start interpreting the stats and charts. Awesome. At least something now I see is that finally I'm getting comments, even though it's anecdotal. At least it's something more than just nothing.
Greetings. Today I want to share with you, as we'll cover what's relevant. So first, the memorized items.
Oh wow, the pacing is way too quick, I think. 4 minutes. Okay, since I have the hunch everything will be too quick, I will pause and first let's see what there is. And since I spend my time to do zoom in and zoom out, it's easier than ever. 2,461 items. The memorized per day is 6.7. It's a lot lower, but again, it's because this is just incremental reading. All of the items I did myself and then I did from the English collection are in a different collection. Do you see 37,000 total? Out of which 3,400 are items, meaning I have about just 11 shy, about 1,000 that are not memorized, are either dismissed, which is unlikely, or pending. We will see that when I scroll down the stats window.
Is okay, just 2,400 in a year? This is kind of...
Let me actually see, by curiosity, pending. Oh! 446. So I will have about 550 that are actually dismissed. Okay, good to know.
Low. Take into account that all the English items are outside of this collection now. So
Yep. The average retention rate has dropped. Is not sorry. The collection's retention rate has dropped. It's the same as before. I just subtracted a subset that I was overperforming, and now it is the same as before. Meaning I haven't done any repetition just yet to decrease the average. I just deleted some stuff there, if this makes sense.
the memorized items, it's very, very low. At the first months, I had 15, 20, up to 24, something like that. And now it's so much lower. But keep in mind, I'm using different collections.
And on top of that, oh no, sorry, the priority protection here, that's super 1 year. That was still SuperMemo 18. Yeah, sorry. So it's the yeah. So therefore it's the percentage, 100%. That means I'm still doing all of the repetitions outstanding for at least items, which makes sense because here is the incremental reading collection. So it's still feasible. I only have 2,000 overall, so now I have more than this. So what I have now, after about 6 years, all that I see is memorized is more. I think I have about 8,000 outstanding. So imagine, I have about 4 times my entire collection of 1 year old. Just outstanding, just in the incremental reading collection. Then there's the language one, which goes much harder.
What's fun is the total elements, especially the topics, are decreasing. Especially this month, I have been deleting or setting down lots of topics. As you can see that it's climbing on July, and then on August, it's declining.
August, yeah. It's declining, so it's decreasing. The topics, because I said done. The ones that become folders will survive. And the other children, that was because of preemptive split. If they are childless, they will just be removed. Even though, because of the scale, it's not that much. So it's just 900. So they're just 500 overall deleted. It's just the scale starts at 34,000. So it's not as dramatic, but it's meaningful, the decrease.
So I deleted so many topics. Extras come to an end and I get rid of them, right? Items I have in my collection, the less topics I have. On this August,
the fewer topics are countable.
You can see that I'm adding lots of items. Here I was 2,900 just at the end of July. That is 5.
Exactly. So about 2 weeks-ish, I add a lot of items. Could be because of subset or because of the criteria that I did a lot of topics. That doesn't look like it's because of an import. Could be the case. That is a small import, and one day to another I have 200-ish. But usually the imports are more in the thousands rather than hundreds.
100 items in just 2 weeks. And keep in mind that all the English items I do myself, I do them on the English collection, not here. So I still added...
Good to know that in this milestone I still did that it will create friction to do this. Let me change the collection, create the item because it's English. Let me move back to incremental reading. That means that this is purely incremental reading alone, not even language items through incremental reading.
About 40 or 50 more cards that are not in this collection. Quite a lot, right? Then retention, 93.3%. It's lower than before, and that's because first, I no longer have the English collection, which was boosting the average. And
exactly what I mentioned before, and also the speed, but then I will wait. Let me see if I say it. Retention, repetition, forgetting index. Oh, perhaps I'm not talking about this. The speed has decreased to 668, which is still rather high, but it's because it's a young collection. And because of those items I did very frequently in the last 2 weeks. And the average time, I'm not sure if I have reset it, which is 5 seconds, because it was 3.5, but even if I have reset that, it's lower. It's higher. Meaning that I'm slower. That's what I wanted to say. So at least I am 0.2 seconds slower than the default. So I'm pushing the average time to a higher number. Good to know. My average in incremental reading at that time, I was spending more than 5 seconds per flashcard item. Also keep in mind that this counts until you reveal the answer. So the time that I do reformulate, that doesn't count. Because when I spend time updating the items to be compliant with the convention, the plain text convention, I did this after answering. So that never counted as repetition time. What I mean is that not because I spent 5 seconds here is actually what I spent for real.
Second, because recently I have been doing Greek items.
I'll get the total time, not even 21 hours, but I think that doesn't reset. So most of those hours were because of English items that are no longer there.
Which this has lowered. If we go at the forgetting index, at the first days, it's so low on the 80s.
Yeah, exactly. It's still a mess. I have, if you notice, 316 repetitions are taken into account, yet I have 35,000. Here I'm not sure if you delete the collection, I think this will affect it. Something this is quite narrow, and I cannot know that just by trial and error, but most of the time I got these a lot lower when I deleted elements. I have a hunch, I'm not actually sure, that those repetitions, those sample, have to be present in the collection. I think. So therefore now I have 25,000, but I deleted a lot, so I have a lot fewer. And look at this. The longer the interval, the less data I have. Look at this. From 29 days to 218. I have nothing in between. That's why SuperMemo algorithm still doesn't adjust to my performance, especially the long-term performance, because there's no data from me. Therefore, it's still using the built-in expert data to take an educated guess that, hey, I don't have no clue how you will perform just yet. Let me use the default. When I use the default and I see you overperform, I will increase it. And if in this case that I outperform, I will increase the intervals. So you have more time, more chances to forget. Even though that's surprising, because the optimal interval still is less than a day. In this collection, especially after even regardless of merging or excluding the English items, I always had 33 days, which is the maximum. So it didn't make a difference. I had perpetually 33 days. So once I got it, that to my surprise, 1 year I still don't. I thought I was sooner, to be honest. Once I reach it, it's forever. It has never decreased, unless I did some other collections, like the Chinese collection, stuff like this, that was a brief lifespan. I didn't continue for years. It was like, yeah, less than a day, 1 day and something. So good to know. And keep in mind that's the recall rate, not the retention rate. But look, and I have 1 year, so that's more time to what? To leads, and so on. So imagine my worst performance is 84. So meaning here, my worst performance, 84%, it's recall, is the same that Anki is using, so I can compare. This is better than Anki. What I did in Anki, and this predates FSRS, by the way, so I was still doing more repetitions than if I was doing FSRS. My performance was lower than that. Was 82 more or less, averaging many years. Then that increased because I did a lot of cramming that was very high. But not counting the cramming was in the 80s forever. I never reached 90 in Anki, absolutely never, even though I was doing more reps. So I'm surprised that the worst performance here at the 5 days, or one, it's already better than the best performance in Anki. Yes, you can also compare that I didn't do incremental reading. So I didn't have general knowledge. There were only language, which is less stable by default. So there's some selection bias.
And the optimal interval is less than a day. Then distributions. That's funny because the
Yeah, I know this graph usually is like this. This is difficulty. So the more to the right, the harder there is. By default, you get, I think, 0.5, but very likely you'll have a little more than that. So this plot is very common. Most of tutorials that I have seen this plot, they have the same pattern. And the one is what you have leached. Or I could say what you have leached and didn't overcome just yet. So if you just suspend them, dismiss them, you're not going to correct them, meaning that in your collection they are still at one difficulty. So it's still feeding the plot. Makes a little sense.
difficulty would be the default difficulty is 0.50, but here I have a longer value, so I have 1,000 items.
Yeah, those three. So what they have, the next one or the previous one are the most common, so no worries.
0.63. And also 300 items here at maximum. One is the maximum difficulty. I don't really get that now,
Then I just told you already.
but I will expect this is what I leached. I don't know, but 300 seems quite a lot. Intervals. So with just 1 year, the collection is just 1 year old.
Wait, let me correct. Not necessarily you have leached, that you have lapsed. Perhaps you lapsed once or twice, which is still not a leech or a semi-leech yet, but it already counts. That's why I have 300, even though leeches in that collection I may have 20. Non-elements interval. Look at this. Those are all elements, so I also have topics here. But look, 1000, it's using a scale of square. So 1000 is incredible. So look at, I have let me see if I have all the items. One sec.
And you could see that most of my items, elements, have an interval of 1,000 days.
No. All of my elements. And most of my elements are topics. Only 10% are items, I think. 3,000 from not even 10%. Oh my god. So this conclusion cannot be drawn. I have way too many topics.
So 3 years already, with just 1 year of use. Crazy. And here about repetitions. Now I'm...
Okay, finally. Only items. This is not the interval or the repetitions. It's a pity I didn't show the items only for intervals. But look at how many repetitions I did. in a year. And keep in mind that my optimum interval was like a day, or a little more than a day, or even less than a day, meaning rounded up to a day. So the minimum. I don't identify now as this. The maximum is 4. Now I think it's a lot less than that. For two different reasons. One, I have a lot of items that I created and are neglected. Their priority is so low that I have only done the first repetition, that is the creation. So I'm pretty sure the one, I will see now on the backup, this will be super high. And then it's very unlikely I will have more than 6 repetitions, because now this will require more than a decade. The future, that is the next 3 decades, it's 6 or 7. So meaning that in 30 years, I will only do 6 repetitions by average. The last one will be the longer interval, so we'll simplify that I will do like 5, unless I lapse them. So let me actually do this. It's a backup, so I will include the language learning, which it will make it a lot worse. It's not just the incremental reading collection, but it will just be a caricature of the point I want to convey. Here you go. Do you see? I know 700,000 elements. I only have one single repetition. It is backup. So it makes it a lot worse, but it's an asymptotic plot, as I expected. Yeah, now the scale is not that good, because that will be like 9,000 for repetitions. It's a pity I cannot do this in a subset. I will need to split the collection entirely, run the collection repairs, and perhaps I will have a meaningful plot after this. But you get the point. How many items I have done 6 repetitions? Like 1,000? Oh, here I cannot cut to the top. Okay. Then, about 18,000, I did a 3rd repetition. Keep in mind that that's the second as an item format. The first is the creation. Then, for the repetition, only 8,000 times. 8,000 elements, sorry. Out of them, only 2,500, I needed a 5th repetition. And then, yeah, let's say 200-ish, I did the 5th repetition. And the 6 is already like 100. And 7 is like very few, just a bunch. I'm assuming because it's high priority enough that I have done the next repetition, so it's no longer outstanding. The next interval is already in the future. Some here are outstanding already. So in order to have a meaningful representation of reality, I will stop adding new material and do all of my outstanding queue, at least for items. And then I will be representing reality. Which, oh, sorry, that's not elements, my mistake, items. Okay. So it's not that pretty in the sense that it doesn't follow the graph asymptotically, that rigidly, but it's the same pattern almost. You can see that 3 is higher than usual and breaks the pattern. But yeah, sorry about that. But more or less the same thing. 20,000, 2 reps, 80,000, about, I don't know, 8,000, 3,000, 1,000. This could be 1,000, the 7 reps. I can actually do the filter at some degree, because you could say, hey, brother, you can do the filter. I want to have at least 8 repetitions for items, right? I don't care about the stats. But that's not actually accurate. I would say 200. Oh, it's more than that. Ah, no, sorry. Sorry, I put 8 to 100. So I'm adding the 8, 9, 10, and the decimal return as well. Makes sense, it's more. Okay. But regardless of this is still not true for one very simple reason. Even though that's not actually true for one single reason, because now, let's see, this one is 8 reps, right? Now I will force the repetition. I don't care because it's a backup. I force the repetition and I fail. Okay, now I move on. Do you see now it says 1 rep and 1 lapse? Because when you lapse, you see here, I have one of the words, well, no, not the words, but 3, 2 lapses. This resets the repetition. This is a major golden nugget because it's a major difference against Anki, and I could say virtually every other spaced repetition app, because SuperMemo resets the count. So basically, repetitions mean the repetitions until the last lapse, if any. So if I have 13, it's very unlikely I have a lapse. Oh wow. Or at the beginning. Usually that's the case. If you lapse at the beginning and then it's usual, is when you have a few more repetitions than usual. But after that, if you lapse, it will be harder to have that many reps. Because if it's, let's say here, midterm, it resets. So the count of 8 is lost. You already got it, right? So therefore, this one that I resetted manually, now I have 1, even though I had 8. So what did you actually see on the plot? Let me see what it is. Okay. Those are the number of elements that currently have this repetition count, meaning they have not been ever lapsed, or since they were lapsed. Therefore, how likely is that I have 9 repetitions since the last lapse if I mentioned that now, because my forgetting, what is optimal interval is 33 days. So the starting interval won't be this number, but it will be really close, or it will be using the close interval that is quite generous as well. Unless it's very high priority, it will be generous, but regardless of this, it will increase really quickly. So the take-home message is that I needed a lot fewer repetitions, like in Anki, and even that my performance was slightly higher on top of that. Even though we cannot compare with this graph because it doesn't contain the overall repetitions that you do it doesn't contain the overall repetitions, all-time repetitions, counting lapses. But again, if I filter repetitions and that I lapsed 0 times, to be fair, look at that. Just 82. Compare this with a few hundred. Those have never been lapsed. And not just this. I'm counting 8 or more. Look at this. The one I had about 13, there's only one other in the collection in 13. Meaning there's nothing else I needed. And that's because it's the start of the collection, August. Like 10 days after the start of the collection. Even that, I only needed 13 days to get it until 6 years interval. And the next interval, if it's 800 days, I will get more than 2,000, guaranteed. The difficulty is about average now. So it's likely that I will do just a few more reps. And I can know that. Yeah, feature 2 reps. So in the next 30 years, I will only need 2 repetitions. Meaning that I will have done 15 repetitions in 35 years. Or 36. So the worst case scenario in my entire collection, which is a key binding, by the way, something that is harder to memorize, makes sense. I only need 15 repetitions in my lifetime. Because then in the time of the next repetition, if it's 36 years, I will be like 70, and the next interval, I will be beyond 100 years old. So I'm not going to do the next repetition, ever. It will outlive me. So imagine, 15, only 15. That is impossible in Anki. And I'm pretty sure that even with FSRS, at least until the versions I tried, it would not be possible. It's still too soon, because yeah, I was doing repetitions on items that had 8 years interval, but yeah, the repetitions it had is because of a different algorithm. But regardless, FSRS, the weakest point are long intervals. Just because the collections they use for training data are from mostly crammers, or people who used SM2, even if they're not crammers, so they have done a lot of more repetitions. The intervals doesn't grow. And you don't have databases from people like me that used Anki for more than 16 years. But I can guarantee there's no way I can get 15 repetitions to outlive me already. Now I think if I start with FSRS since day one, so the first repetition I mean, could be the case. I cannot tell you that. I need years to verify this for real. Because I could cheat the time on my computer, which I could do one experiment, cheating my time, and fast forwarding years, and let's see the computation of the next years to verify how many repetitions I will need, but I will not know if I remember it at that time. So it won't be a useful exercise either. But at least I have proved my point, that what you see in the graph, here it should end at 15. There's no way that in my lifetime I can go beyond 16 and 20. It's not possible. And if I reach it, it's resetted. So I'll need to manually modify the intervals so I can do more repetitions than natural.
Filtering only items. Most of the items have up to 4 repetitions. That is unlikely on Anki to have 6, 7, 8 repetitions in a year, and in topics it's a lot less. Most of the
Oh, nice, I did topics, exactly. This is actually common. This is just telling me, hey, you don't use postpone. Or should I say auto postpone. So most of your elements are just waiting for you. I have been imported or extracted and waiting for the priority protection to come, to match the priority of the element. And then more than 4 repetition, that also then tells me more or less your granularity of extracting. The more granular, the more elements you will have, and the fewer repetitions you will do per element, because the text is shorter. The less granular, the fewer elements you will have with the same content, the more content you will have per element, therefore, most likely, the more repetitions you will do. Do you see that it's about 2,000-ish just 2 reps, meaning 1 for real, 1 is extracting, or the importing or splitting, 1 is for real, and the third is the second. This is already very marginal. So let me see this in this collection. In language, I don't do much extracting, so this will be biased in the average. 26,000 topics have never been seen, have only been created. Then it's about 10,000 here, which in the video was 2,000. Now it's 10,000. Well, not even 10,000, about 10,000 has increased. And the third is about 1,000-ish, let me see. 19,000, 18,000, something like this. It's a lot more. Why? Because of the time. So especially if you don't use how to postpone, could be that you come to the repetition, or both. Because if you do how to postpone, you will see it much later. So for example, the next interval, you start with 2 days. The next interval is 1.5 years. the U factor is absurdly high because you keep postponing it. Or, no, the U factor was just very minimal, the same as the A factor to simplify, 1.1 to say something. So it was 1 day, next is 1 day, then 2 days, but it became outstanding next day, but you needed 1 year to see it anyways. So, and for reps, about 8,000, that has changed, 1 second, topics only. Oh wait, this is what I'm changing. The key binding it's messed up. 1 sec. Oh, it's control down, my mistake. Yeah, let's put 9,800, more or less, about 10,000, okay. But the third repetition is about 1,000 items, 1,000 topics, sorry. And the fourth, not even 200 topics. And 5 reps, like 50, 40, and like 10, I did 10 reps. And again, we can go with the browser. Filtering this. Now I want topics, not items. And I have at least 8 reps. But again, this is not true. This is a huge limitation in SuperMemo. Because this is telling, hey, now I have a bunch of topics that have 8 or more reps. Now, in this precise time, as soon as I apply done, the count will be reset. And what happens? That most of the topics that I did a lot of reps, it's almost guaranteed that I have applied done. Yeah, sorry, the first one is too personal. So I will, this I can share with you. And look at this. Do you see the interval was growing not that much because it was very high priority. It was still increasing. And now, because of the priority range, in this priority is way above my protection. That's why I don't see it. Has been postponed once already, but it's waiting for me for a few years already. I should have done this in April. Well, it was 45. Yeah, in May 2022, and it's still waiting for me. But now, if I apply, to prove my point, I apply it done because it's genuine. There's nothing I can do already. I read everything. Do you see the reps? Now it's 0. It has been reset. And here, in the element window, you can see it. 0 days and 0 reps. That's something I don't like about SuperMemo, because then this plot becomes meaningless. Hey, consider repetitions, like history repetitions, and actual count of the repetitions if you want. You have those 2 ways to compute repetitions. Because then, yeah, everything that I have processed, that I finished, I know that I have a few topics beyond 100 repetitions. So this affected the average of the collection, how many repetitions per topics, of course. It's marginal, because most topics only have 1. So that will be in some decimal point, if that. But now I cannot see which topics I did so many repetitions. If I remember one that was one glossary, that I did have the convention, that was always 1 day. And I did 1 repetition every single day, or almost every single day I use SuperMemo. And I did more than 100 repetitions. I had a few topics like that. How I can look them for that? It's in the history. If I look for that element, I see the history, the repetitions will be there. But I cannot filter it. It's a massive limitation. I don't know why. So long story short, I will need to export the entire repetitions as XML or whatever format, and then write in a script so only gets parse topics, and then above a threshold. Let's say 10 or whatever. And then I could tell you, hey, there are that many elements that in history-wise had above this repetition threshold and are topics, not items. Because I cannot answer this with this. Not with the plot. A massive limitation. And that is something that is not a deal breaker, But first, it makes this useless. And the longer your collection, the most useless it becomes. Because you can only tell what is already now. So the subset of now versus ever will be smaller and smaller. So now I have 8 topics that have 8 repetitions or more. Or I forgot the number. Very low. Yeah, that have 8 or more. Yeah, look at this. It's anecdotal. Could be that I used SuperMemo for 16 years if it was Anki. And perhaps that should be on the hundreds at the very least. And where are those? Could be that in my collection it just dismissed because of applying done. I can also search for them. So the quantity of average and all of this doesn't represent at all what I did. 12, okay. So 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, only 4, sorry, that are 8, and 12 that are 8 or more. That's not true. What happens is that in this backup, it's only oh my god. This is actually not true. So let's say that I always have this convention to always have some topics that I do every day. So therefore I do a lot of repetitions. But I can only see what is not finished. The ones that I didn't apply done just yet. So the longer I have this convention, this usage, the longer I use SuperMemo, the more useless this become. Because 12 of how many? Of 100. Or 12 of 1,000. Oh, 12 of 3,000. It becomes point something percent that is just negligent. What you're plotting in SuperMemo is just not even 1% of the collection. So, absolutely meaningless. Meaningless. It is useful for items. Because then items first are forever and are distinct from topics. Topics you can do a few repetitions, out of repetitions, but expect the same time. Just more incremental or less incremental. And it doesn't convey, so more repetitions is not worse. In items, it is. You want to optimize it, right? So you want the least amount of repetitions to keep it on your long-term memory. And you can do this standard, which I don't particularly like, that you only count after the last lapse. At least you could still have a plot that you can check time to time and have some meaningful insights. But for topics, I'm sorry, but if my collection is not 1 month old, it becomes useless, in my opinion.
Topics has only the automatic repetition. Here, the average interval of items, it's 1 year. It's
exactly 1 year, 1 month, and 12 days. And I have only used this collection for 1 year. So this is absurdly different from Anki, my Anki experience, again, predating FSRS. Because the average interval in my collection is longer than the time I have invested in the collection. Meaning, there will be items that I did on August, like in the first days, after a month, but here I have items that I did last week, or just yesterday, which interval will be limited. They only have only the starting interval, which is again computing in the average. So now here, the older the collection, the less effect of novelty. But you still, like a 20-year-old collection, you'll have items that you need many repetitions, some that, hey, I still need a few years to become outstanding to the next rep. So I cannot have a chance to do the next rep. And what you did last year, that it becomes outstanding this year, and so on. This is impossible in Anki. Again, without FSRS, what will happen eventually? You started, even if I don't do steps. So when I do the card, it becomes next day. Nothing of 1 minute, a minute, next day already. Okay, so I do the first. The next one is in 1 day. Then default it's 2.5, the multiplier, because it's using like the A factor more or less. So 3 days, if I put easy with a bonus, I have a few more, but then it's 3 weeks at most, an extra repetition a few months. So I need like 6 or 7 minimum to put it to a year. 6 repetitions. Here I have 3.7 by average. And rule of thumb. What means to be mature in Anki? 3 weeks interval. In SuperMemo, by average, it's the first repetition. Unless it's very high priority from the close interval, and especially that was fed from the pending queue, therefore using my optimal interval, which was 33 days, the starting interval was already above the threshold of mature in Anki. That is already telling you that how you evaluate maturity in Anki is a lot shorter. If just the first interval surpasses this already. Second, usually in Anki, you need more natural time. So if you have 21 days interval, 3 weeks interval, you don't need 21 days. You need more than those. Because first is 1 day, 4 days, 10 days, and then it's 21, yeah, but it's 21 plus 10 plus 4 plus 1. You have to sum all of this. So, assuming you have done the repetition the first day that becomes due, hey, I need about a month and a half to have a 3 weeks interval. And always for me in Anki was like this. Hey, now I have intervals of 3 years, but I have been using Anki for more than 3 years. Because in intervals we're growing so slowly that the accumulated time was still more than the natural time that happened. Because at maximum, it was multiplying by 3. I've always put easy, so the equivalent of the A factor was higher. Well, I think it's another factor, not the A factor, but to simplify. It's one of those factors that doesn't exist anymore in SuperMemo. Basically, it's by default 2.5. If you put easy, then it's 265, 15% higher, right? So the next one could be 2.8, 2.95, 3.9. So even if you always put easy, at maximum will be 3 point something that you multiply. So 3 years, that is 9 years. 9 will be 27. Until you don't get those, then this is multiplied now by 3, and it supersedes the natural time that happens. But beyond, you don't get to 3 years.
Longer than the collection, and the average interval for topics, it's even longer.
Yeah, for topics it's not that relevant because it depends a lot of how you use SuperMemo. So if I use auto postpone, that doesn't tell me anything. Or if I turn it on after a while, then off, and so on, or depends on your criteria. It's just good to know in the sense that you know how you are lying behind from the importing date. But it doesn't tell me much. And again, if you're very granular, you will have a shorter time span. And if you are low granularity extracting, you will have a longer lifespan. You will do more reps. So this is only interpreted as a overall. That's why I do with tutorials. This alone doesn't tell me anything. But hey, if I see how you use it. You're more or less the classification I do, like the gardener, sculpture, all of this. Then seeing different stats, hey, then makes sense, this and that. Oh, this is not a liar. This looks like too low or too high. It's like a blood test, right? That in the blood test you see, the cholesterol, and hey, this is for in your case, that's higher than expected or lower than expected. And then, hey, this is a symptom. But this alone, it's very high. I don't know. Depends on the person, the age, if they take some medicine that they increase that. So there's a lot of context. That's why 1 year and 1 year and 7 months is more than the items. Doesn't tell me anything.
1 year and a half and more than that. And the average repetitions, 3.7 per item. Nice.
And I don't see the topics, 1.1. And again, it's an indication of two things. That you have a very low threshold of importability. Therefore, you have a lot of topics that you import and you neglect. Therefore, by default, you're skewing the average. It will be really close to 1. Or either you are or the other case is that, hey, I'm a heavy extractor, so therefore I create an extract. In the first repetition of that extract, I create another extract. Perhaps I do a second repetition and I will play done. And from this new extract is a new element that is a topic that it's not being done. No repetitions are being done, so I'm putting this closer to 1. Or could be both at the same time. That's why, yeah. Again, I can speculate case B, case A, B, or perhaps C, if there's quite versatile. But I will need to know your collection. But as soon as I know some of your stats in the collection, hey, I can discard that case, therefore, it's a consequence of this. But being a consequence is not something that is negative. So, hey, you have a value very close to 1. Yeah, because you import a lot. It's not something that you need to fix. That the higher the topic repetitions by average, the better. You'll realize when I do soon the video about the 20-year milestone of Little Fish. I forgot the number, but I remember I said, wow, that's really high. It's unusually high. Yeah, but he only has 2,000 topics that represents like 1% of the collection. It's abnormally low. Yeah, because he doesn't do incremental reading, per se. He does like some surrogated reading outside, and then puts the paragraphs, the highlights in SuperMemo, and only does like the latest step of incremental reading, if this makes sense. Therefore, what's going to happen? The stats will be super skewed.
Repetition count, 24,000. That's very little. So little.
That is what? For items. And remember, if you have a flow that you reset items, that you dismiss and restart and so on, even if you don't restart, just because you forget them or you dismiss them and so on, like a toggle off in Anki suspending, in SuperMemo it's not the same thing. And among other things, it will restart the repetition history. So the history will be there, but it won't be counted. Therefore, I can have 5 repetitions. I dismiss it. I put it back to the more or less the equivalent of the same priority, same interval, and so on. But yeah, now it has 1 repetition.
And keep in mind that,
and again, this is the overall you did. This is a stat. If now I delete my entire collection, it won't be modified. Is whether you have done overall in that collection. And the opposite is also true. If I now import 100,000 items from another collection and I merge it, this number is not going to be increased. So especially if you have exported branches or merged collections, most of the stats here take it with a grain of salt because they don't represent at all the actual case. One are purely arithmetic. That is just what you have in the collection, like how many memorized items you have, the days that had the period, the days, boom, mathematically you have the memorized per day. What exactly? But hey, what happens if you merge this collection to a younger collection that has fewer days? Then this metric doesn't make any sense once again. That's why the stats, yeah, they can be used to diagnose or to identify a use case, SuperMemo, and sometimes it's not something that you need to fix. It's just is giving me the impression you have this flow, and according to your goals, this flow is not helping you, or is creating more friction that you don't need to create. So if you have this other flow, it won't be better because you change the number as a consequence. It's just that for you, it will create a lower degree of friction, but you will retain the speed could be the same, or the retention rate is the same. So the performance at the end of the day, it's the same. It's just your subjective feeling of friction while you use the app, which is a big thing, by the way.
There are a couple thousand repetitions here that are from the English collection, really, not from incremental reading. Obviously, those numbers don't mean anything about the quality and performance of my incremental reading. It's just descriptive of the volume.
Exactly. Well, I talk too quick here. Meaning, yes, I can afford speaking higher rate if I want to, but I won't be as clear to articulate first. And second, I don't have to, because I want to be how-to video, so the words per minute and so on, it's better if it's limited, rather than if it is a new cast or whatever. And it's actually true. Most of the time, it's actually impossible. I cannot say has better quality than the other. I can say it's more incremental, it's more pure to the essence of incrementalism. The other one is more linear, or less incremental. Is this worse? Well, it's less incremental, and with this you have pros and cons. And with this, that you are a heavy extractor, or you do a very high level of granularity of extracting, it's a style. So, again, there are pros and cons, and there will be consequences. And sometimes it's not that it's bad, it just happened that in SuperMemo, because how it is designed and implemented, it will be easier for you to trigger bugs, or you will have technical limitations. Like, hey, I prefer bigger images and have image extracts. Yeah, but when you load the image, since the image is high resolution, when it's a few megabytes, SuperMemo is super slow. So therefore, as an example, could be that one use case, it's not that it's bad, it's worse. Is that, yeah, for the technical reasons, you will experience a higher degree of friction for technical reasons alone. Meaning that if you used another software, or SuperMemo will have updated this, there will be no difference, if you know what I mean. That means that sometimes, yes, I do adjust one use case or one user flow because of friction with the software or performance. That is way too slow, and I need to wait 10 seconds to load. I start like this.
More repetitions doesn't mean I'm learning more. And the average forgetting index,
exactly. More repetitions doesn't mean I'm learning more. True for both items and topics. Topics, more or less, could be the style of how you do it. But items, more repetitions, we could lead to the conclusion that it's very likely you're worse a learner. If you need more repetitions per item, the average, means the intervals you're getting are shorter, potentially because you forget more often, and that's potentially because of the quality or the formation of knowledge, stuff like this. So more repetitions doesn't mean you're learning more. Could be the case that it is. To simplify, let's say that I do 1 million repetitions. Okay. Another person does 6 million. Oh, I feel identified here. Let me do it the other way around. I am the one with 6 million, right? And let's see Wozniak. He has 1 million. Okay. Hey, I'm sixfold, right? I have 6 times the amount of repetitions than you. Therefore, I have the knowledge 6 times bigger than Wozniak. That is a wrong conclusion. Could be the case that is true. Could be the case. But it is very unlikely. Why? Because what's important is not the total amount of repetitions. It's the repetitions per item. How many repetitions you need, and how much time for those repetitions. Therefore, the workload or the burden. the cost in seconds or in minutes per item you do that you can keep in your memory, right? This is more useful to be compared. Not the overall quantity of items or repetitions doesn't tell me anything, right? Could be the case that even if I have 6 million repetitions, my knowledge is smaller than Wozniak's. Because, yeah, those 6 million repetitions come from 100,000 topics, items, meaning I have done a lot of unnecessary repetitions to keep that in the long-term memory, so I have been less efficient in the spaced repetition because of the quantity of the flashcards, formation of knowledge, etc. I'm already losing. I'm already a worse learner here. Not just this, that then could be that the scope of what I have, so the blueprint, the size of the network that I'm capturing through the flashcards is smaller than Wozniak because he has done pretty good flashcards. And with incrementalism, the Darwinian law, that the best memories, the ones that survive, and now with just a few flashcards, items in SuperMemo, he can store a lot more information, a lot more knowledge. Because it has been crystallized, it has been generalized, unlike me, that they are more like word precise, in the sense that it's more about the wording of the sentence. Oh, mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, right? That I have a lot of jargon, a lot of nomenclature that I didn't understand that profoundly, crystallized and so on. Therefore, I have more flashcards. For every single one of those flashcards, I have more repetitions for the same degree of knowledge that I am encapsulating. So, in other words, the density of flashcards per knowledge is worse. So, going again, if I have 6 million repetitions, perhaps I'm encapsulating a network of knowledge of, let's say, 20 random arbitrary units, right? And perhaps Wozniak, with just 1 million, he's encapsulating 100 arbitrary units of knowledge. So even though I'm sixfold, I'm just 10% of what he has, meaning I'm 60 times less efficient than him. That's why, as a silly example, with arbitrary units, to tell that those numbers are just telling what you're doing. Hey, you have done that many repetitions, that many items. They're not telling you have learned this and that, the quantity of knowledge you have, and the quality of that knowledge, how easy you can retrieve that knowledge, and apply this knowledge for something else. So this is just not to tell the answer, but for problem solving or whatever. No stat can tell you that, at least today. That's why don't aim at any number in particular. There are some, could say, heuristic exceptions, like the retention rate, not exactly, the retention rate to aim at, not the retention rate to have, which in SuperMemo is done vice versa. It's done the other way around. You request the forgotten index, and by requesting the forgotten index, you get something approximate, but not the same, and the retention rate. So if I want a retention rate of 95%, it's the same as requesting a 10% forgetting index. So instead of this number, you do the other one. In this case, it's 13, so I'm still underperforming. But this is what they said. It's not that I seek 13% or 10%. It's that more or less that's what I'm aiming for, but I'm just rather close. SuperMemo is adjusting to that. It's enough. Being that perfect to 10% won't make it better. It would make it better mathematically to what you have arbitrarily chosen. But what you have arbitrarily chosen, 10%, is just an arbitrary choice. It's not the optimum. It's just a pretty good heuristic, not the optimum. Therefore, you are optimizing for something that is not optimal at the end of the day. It's a good guess. if you know what I mean.
Of the volume. More repetitions doesn't mean I'm learning more. And the average forgetting index, I'm using the default 10% of desired forgetting.
Exactly what I just mentioned. So this is what the requested one, 10%. The average of the requested is 9.48 collection-wise, and that's because some elements you can put a desired forgetting index individually, item-wise, that they overrule the setting of the collection-wise. That means that some of them, a few hundred, they have a lower forgetting index, and that's the average. Again, this average doesn't tell me anything. So if my scope is that, no, you know what? The few items I have about key bindings, I want 5%. Then if I have 400 items like this, it more or less means 0.5% decrease. If I had 1,000, it would be 9% at the end of the day. But it's a consequence. I don't aim at any number here. So this is a consequence of how many items I have of that domain. That's about it. And I want 5%. Could be that I want 7%. And it won't be the same number, right? I just did this first for the sake of trying it out, because I wanted to try everything in SuperMemo, because I already detected they were harder to memorize without using mnemonics after a threshold. Especially if it's a key binding that I no longer use. When it's beyond 2 years, I most likely will fail it. If they are not mnemonic. For instance, Mercy, I know it's M. Oh, but yeah, it's not Control Shift, because that is apply template. Or perhaps it's Alt. Alt what? Control Alt or Shift Alt? One of those? Oh shit, it's the other one. It's when you fail it. Or when it's purely arbitrary. That is like Control Shift, like going, there's one that is Alt, Control Shift, F12. What is this key binding? Oh yeah, cycling against the UI levels, something very obscure. But I cannot use any mnemonic like M for Mercy, that is F12, it's just arbitrary choice. Then, this again doesn't tell me anything. It's just a consequence. And this is the forgetting index 31 to optimize for. And what I got measured is slightly higher. And that day, it was 4.3. And it was everything because I did all my outstanding items. So that day was particularly good performance. So SuperMemo was still adjusting. But this forever adjusting because I keep changing things. That, hey, now I have more elements for Chinese that are lower than usual. So this will decrease the average forget index requested. But now if I split it, that goes away. That's why sometimes I have 96, 93. This is collection-wise, doesn't tell me anything. Unless my collection is super homogenic, that for every difficulty thing, so what I change the forget index goes to a different collection. So all of the elements in my collection are 10, that's it. Or my collection elements here are 5 and 7, the other. It will make sense to check at this one, because yeah, if it's 50-50, well, it will be the average. But yeah, at 400, 2,000, and 100,000, because 100,000 is skewing the average super high, like 3% more. That yeah, I don't ever take a look at this number at all. It's not representing anything. Then what I do is a subset, and then I check the retention rate of that subset. For instance, now that this collection is actually not a split, I will do this, process branch, statistics. And it's the same thing as only the collection of incremental reading. And I want to see the performance, only this alone. which will be lower. Because I have English and Korean, it will be even lower, right? Then retention, 96. Okay, it's not the best example, but it's 96. You can see that here is not, it was 93%, right? Hey, there's a 3% difference here. Oh yeah, but if I go, let's see, language and Korean, in this backup there won't be much put there. It's 92. Hey, it's significantly small. I don't know if you can see it. It's lower. Yeah, but what is the requested one? Hey, the requested for an index actually is 12. So therefore, I'm actually closer to the target because I'm not targeting to 10. Hey, are you sure about that? Let's check one. Now you will be surprised. Do you see? It says 12. Sometimes could be that says default equals 12. And what's the difference? It's because one is the collection requested. Do you see that now it's at 12, the default? If now I put it back to 10, it's still 12. This happened, is one of the limitations of merging collections. So actually the collection was pointing at 12, but when you move it, since the collection, the host, is 10, then it's hard-coded to 12, because cannot point to the original default collection value, because this is usually it's a pointer. Now if I put 10, then it's the same as the collection, but doesn't say the default, right? And now if I do reset, this, that doesn't change. So sometimes my take-home message is that this is niche, this is for the completionist, not even for the mastery. What happens is that you have modified some requested forget index because you use different collections. They were pointing, all of them were pointing at the default, but the default was different. And when you merge it, you will need to change it if you want to point the default. If it's 12, cannot be 10, right? Therefore, it's hard-coded at 12. It's the same. In the practical sense, it's the same. But if you move it back, then it's no longer the same. Because if I move it back to a different collection, or even if it's the same one as before, but I have changed it back to 10, hey, it says 12, and it's hard-coded 12. So if I move it back, which is what I did, now, because it's a backup, it is merged, hey, now in my collection, that is 10 by default, now it's a hard-coded 10. A hard-coded 12. Meaning it's no longer pointing to the collection default. That's something I realized years later. I'm checking this. So this could be, so the golden nugget is that if you never did this, or you did it just because you wanted to explore that thing, and it doesn't match, hey, there's something like this example that could happen. That if you merge collections, split, and so on, oh, oopsie, that's not the one I wanted. And could be that I have been doing this for years without realizing. And this just will led me to a slight increase of repetitions. That is not required. Because this higher difficulty was because of the nature of the content. It's Korean, and at the beginning that is more semantic. But what I'm doing here is incremental reading. It doesn't transfer, right? So I have 2% different reduction rate for nothing. It doesn't make sense.
I'm learning more. And the average forgetting index, I'm using the default 10% of desired forgetting index, and I am slightly below that. And look the forgetting index.
I'm slightly below that, but at that time, I think, I didn't understood as what I mentioned now, is because I was not aware of what I just mentioned. I thought that, oh yeah, this is just calibrating, right? No. This is hard-coded. This is arithmetics. If element 1, which is the requested forget index, 10, next one, pam, you do the average. It's purely arithmetics. It's not the one that is measured. Depends on your performance when you grade your elements, your items, which is what I think here. How I mentioned it is not enough, but it leads me to believe it was still a thing, and it's 1 year milestone, so I think I still didn't caught that. One of those details that are very subtle, are on your face, always on your face, very subtle, but could make a dramatic difference in the long term. Especially people like the little Lish Fish-chan, who does hundreds of repetitions every single day for 2 decades. Imagine, hey, you would have saved 20% of your all-time repetitions. You did more than 2 million, 2 million and a half, let's say. Hey, this half was redundant. You did 500,000 repetitions for nothing, to no benefit, just because of this. I don't say that's the cause, is that it could be to simplify, like this, that, oh wow, I have done 500,000 repetitions more for something that was not necessary. To have a repetition rate that was higher than what I wanted as a consequence of technicalities of the software.
What a mess. Recently I made a video about forgetting index versus priority. This one, right? That this is due to the Greek items that I did.
I did Greek in SuperMemo? Not anymore. I mean, I have the concept there, but the concept are for the English collection who had Greek, Latin. I take those out of the collection, and I are on my Greek branch. Concept. It's a concept just so I can use a hook. That's about it.
Recently, with very high priority. And look at the forgotten index. So once I stopped that, I was about 40% forgotten index. Look how it looks.
Exactly. And this is the forgotten index you see here within parentheses. So this 4.3% is this one. August 11th. First day, exactly. And that was about 5%, yeah, more or less. So the average is 13, but it could be that some days that, hey, this is very consistent. Oh yeah, that's because you haven't used SuperMemo or you haven't done any item repetition with grading. And this is, yeah, perhaps I did the Greek elements were tougher in the sense that is more asemantic in the beginning, especially when it's just the script. So it's not something that you can use other knowledge you have. Could be the case that, hey, if I know Cyrillic, hey, this is the same, or it's the same word but mirrored, or stuff like this. Then it becomes easier, right? But I introduced this in a few days. That's why the forgetting index was so high. And could be the case that I did subsets. So I introduced this very, very non-incremental. If I do it more incremental, like 2 or 3 per day, the average forgetting index per day will be just cosmetically higher, just a few pixels, something you won't notice, but the overall will be the same, 13.6. So this doesn't tell me anything because I see though these are outliers and depends on what you did.
5 days, 2 months? What? First, I haven't started advanced English at day 1. I don't know how long it took, but several weeks. And second, I started from scratch because I did some mistakes. Well, I wanted to.
Yeah, now I remember this. Yeah. I literally, what happened is that since I use it on my main collection, the element numbers were different. And when I wanted to report bugs, oh shoot, the element number is arbitrary what I have. So I have to search some of the content to get the element, stuff like this. And since I only did 1,000 or 2,000 from the beginning, that are the most simple from a perspective of proficiency, that's very quick to do. But instead of doing this, it's let me do now the advanced English collection, keeping the ideas, which later I will lose anyways. And it was not a big deal because I have lost them. But yeah, once this has been reported, oh yeah, you won't be able to update the collection, the content, with the typos or whatever. Yeah, but has been a new release in 8 years. It's 2026. That was 2018. Nope. They're still selling the same version, even though I have reported the duplicates that I mentioned later before in this reaction series.
Start from scratch so I could use the same.
That's why at some time I think that I also did like this blindly, just to memorize them. So I could also have done the same thing, select the branch, the first branches, and set remember in bulk. So memorize them from the pending queue to the priority queue, and I won't have affected the average time. But yeah, not a big deal.
IDs, and you may wonder, wow, 343 items a day? That's impossible. Yes, it is. Absolutely impossible. What I did is...
It's possible to do as a repetition, the number of repetitions you do. But that doesn't tell you this. It's a number of new elements, the new items you introduce. So 343 new items per day, not repetitions. If you keep this every day, you will need more and more repetitions to keep up. Because you have to do today what you have seen yesterday, 3 days ago, 1 week ago, a few weeks, months, years, to keep going. Assuming you never fail, you never lapse, it will always be increasing.
I went to the browser and I memorized this.
If we simplify, as we have said, that at maximum I will need 15 repetitions in history, the life expectancy of the item, then you could simplify that at worst would be 343 times 15, the workload. The worst, it could grow. But that is assuming no forgetting. With the forgetting, it will keep increasing. And because of the quantity, your forgetting index will be higher and higher every time because of the absurd amount of interference. So you will reach a point that you will spend all day recalling. And you could not, and your performance will decrease and decrease. So even if you stop adding new material for a while, your outstanding queue will still increase because the forgetting means you have to do more repetitions, and then those items will increase the intervals at a lower pace. So you don't need now to do 15 reps, you need more. As an example, what you see here, because I saw sometimes some newbies saying that, oh wow, I do more repetitions than you do. Oh, I thought you were a master, right? Oh yes, because of the time involvement. But oh yeah, let's say that we both do 1 hour a day, whatever. We could simplify that we spend the same amount of time per day. Oh, I do more reps. How come I do more than if you are a newbie, right? I'm better than you. It's illusory. First, you don't have anything from the past to keep up with, right? You only do what is already new, day one. There's nothing that is from the past. So at the beginning you go super fast. And this will stabilize at some point. It's just, once again, vanity metrics. Not common in SuperMemo, but common in Anki. That, hey, I did this, especially if it's a shared deck. Hey, I did this shared deck of this language in 30 days. Nope, you didn't. First, the collection was already done. You didn't do the content at all. then you are not doing active recall. You are doing passive recognition. So you cannot recall anything from the collection. Well, most likely, some percentage still transfers, and you will be able to recall, even if you only did passive. But most of what you did, and also it's very young. It's been only a month, so it hasn't been solidified, and the interference is very high. Yes, you achieved the high numbers here. You achieved a 0 there. Congratulations. You have learned close to nothing. And one person that only has done 10% with the same time span, but hey, I take my time to learn it for real, not just as a parrot. It's active recall. I can use it in a sentence from now on, that vocabulary. And if I only did 10%, that is a lot better. And it could take 1 year to finish the deck. But when this guy finishes the deck, he will have this knowledge in his fingertips, retrievable at will, and in order to use it in the language. The other guy, outside of Anki, no transfer. It's nope, I'm not able to speak with a foreigner with that language, and a speaker of that language. Just give me the X, and I will give you the answer of the flashcards. It has been optimized for a different thing. That's why, if you want to gain those stats, which you can do if you want, but your goal will be different. The goal won't be learning a language anymore. Like some users in Duolingo, you just want to keep a streak to get points or whatever vanity metric you want. But it is not increasing your proficiency in the language at all. It's something else. I have a video that incremental reading is not to impress anyone, or I could say just you. But you are not going to be impressed by the stats, but the knowledge you have, how easy it is to use it. It's incredible. I can guarantee you, after 11 days of Anki, and I tried everything, language, general knowledge, coming for exams, PECs for mnemonic systems, and so on. When I did incremental reading, because it's very connected, it's very semantic, it sticks a lot better. It is like more effortless, and it's the capacity to see everything like the big picture, the network. That are not isolated facts that I recall, and that's it. It's incredible. 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 And even if I was still doing mistakes, still not prioritizing well, and so on, I was already experiencing this. So imagine.
The first 6,000 was more or less what I did before. Not everything, there are a couple of thousands that I redid from scratch. And look now, I have 6,000 something outstanding. But I don't mind that because SuperMemo now things that are new. I only did 1 repetition. And look at the retention rate, super high. Also, first, I know English before starting SuperMemo. And also, I used this very same collection to begin with. The optimum interval is still at 33 days, which
doesn't spark difference. If you remember, the other collection, after a year, and containing 2,000 repetitions from the English collection, by the way, it had less than a day. Here, in just 2 months, I already have the maximum, capped by design. From 12,802 repetitions, 9,610 are being used for this calculation. Not always are being used. I don't know why. It's always a subset. But do you see what happened? Most of the repetitions are between 29 and 41 days. More or less is the optimal interval. Then the optimal interval is modified by the priority. The close interval. The starting interval, basically. Doesn't have to be a closed deletion, by the way. It's just mentioned closed because it's meant to be used through incremental reading. but it means an item that has been created from the user. That doesn't come from the pending queue. Nice. Then I can say that, do you see the size of the circle? Most of the sample here comes from this level, meaning that most of the starting interval I got is what in Anki, do you see 21 here? Most is to the right side. And do you see the average? It's here, this line. Meaning that virtually most of the collection, most of the elements that are memorized, the first repetition is beyond a mature card in Anki. Because the optimum interval is 33 days. It's already above that. Then, if you add the layer of the priority, the lowest priority will have set an interval of about 40 days. Not 41, 40. And if you have the maximum priority, it's a range, and I'm not sure if it's 18 days. I'll have to double check that, but it's still quite significant what you're getting. So basically, I'm assuming there will be those that I have here, and those I succeeded because it's like next, basically. But here, 96%, artificially high. Because 2000, like 10%, were already there in my collection by the started over. And also 7 layer because it's pre-made material. That I will not have created the flashcard for myself now. But that's the golden nugget. This would have been impossible in SuperMemo to have an static interval that high. But keep in mind, that's because now it seems like it's good because of what I did. But later on, creating my own items for English stayed the same. So my starting intervals were huge, absolutely huge. That's why with just 3 repetitions, the interval was already in the years.
It's the maximum.
Unlike in Anki.
You can see here it's 100%. That's not the case
74.
with 2 days, but it's pretty good. And now all my items that comes from the pending queue, or I set in the browser as memorized using the default, using my optimal.
Oh yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, then I remember exactly. So sometimes because I remember it is this pam, and then then I realized, hey, that's that feature that I can set to memorized using the default. So that time interval, sorry. Because I thought that everything was like the same day. 1 day, 4 days. Because it's what you do by one by one. Yeah, makes sense. It's the same, but bypassing this. It's what I said before, that if I don't want to modify the the average time, which I already did, but I could even make this worse. Because it's not the same 1.1 seconds of 100 repetitions than 1.1 of 12,000. Then I will need a lot more reps to take over the average, and it will be easier to just reset it back to 5. So that's what I did basically. So then this is cheated, but what will happen is that I kept that. So my performance, the retention rate was on the 98, perhaps 97 or 96.8, something like this. So slightly lower than this, but not much lower. And I could afford that retention with those starting points. Then, now the backup will be a mess because it's merged. Let me actually try it out. Forgetting the second tab. Yeah, now I have this. Do you see it's now not 41, it's 57. It's still the largest. But yeah, the plot is not that meaningful now. Look at the amount of repetitions. It's way too tiny. Yeah, not useful anymore.
Interval. You can see this big circle. It's because most of the items have a huge interval. It's already above 1 month, the first interval. Retention rate is
Interval.
great. This will change in the future. Here,
Items, yeah, exactly. More or less that was the collection, what it is, and this is generally what I add myself.
is the quantity of elements. So those items,
44,000, and now I don't have it here in this backup, even though it's not useful to tell this. This will be part of a next milestone, but now I have slightly more than 120,000, something like that, memorized. And everything has been done by me, basically. It isn't from the Advanced English collection. Meaning that now I have more elements that are mine, generally mine, than from the Advanced English collection.
you can see, it's the ones I'm adding manually. Usually from my incremental reading, when I came across one word I don't know.
Even though in Anki I still have something, and there's about 40,000 that I deleted because they were not mine. So let's simplify a shared collection, and it was British English, and you know what? Let me delete it now because it was low quality. I didn't do it myself, and I was interfering because yeah, it's something that perhaps in American English the meaning still exists, sometimes don't. And since I'm not interested in British English, fuck it. And I deleted 30 something, or 40 something like this that I have. Or a little less, 38,000, something like this. That will be in Anki that I could have converted in SuperMemo or keep in Anki, but I deleted them.
Word or expression, or in real life, an email, a conversation, a TV show, whatever. What I do now is consistently, systematically, I add the items. And you can see on August,
add the items. The grammar, I add the items. I don't do this anymore. I create the items because I don't care. For a while, I have the Advanced English collection with my own stuff and Incremental Reading collection. But no, now the Incremental Reading collection also has English. I just create a closed deletion there, boom. I reuse the sentence of what I was reading as a language item or as a sentence item, and that's it. And that is a lot better because it's a lot more meaningful. It's an example of what I was reading, and something that was high interest. So imagine that this was a sentence from what Wozniak said, or someone that I respect in the forums or in a YouTube video. Oh wow, even though it's not a quote, it's something that it's meaningful, right? Was explaining this thing, he used that word. That happened before when I was sharing the screen in the previous video. And one of the examples that I remembered that was from Wozniak in his writings. That's why it is so easier to remember like this. Then not just the definition of dictionaries. And now with language models, the dictionary is just to verify. Is hey, I'm not sure about this. Let me verify. Okay, yeah. It's not a hallucination. So now the dictionaries is only to prevent or verify hallucinations. I still get some example sentences, but quantity-wise, I cannot tell you. Cannot. If it was Anki, I would be able to tell you, but not in SuperMemo. My best guess will be less than 5%. Most of what they have in Korean, that's not true because I started from zero, so I have pre-built material. But from then, I reuse the same images I have studied for English or for incremental reading, and I want to describe them in Korean. So very shortly, I will have the same amount of the pre-built material, and then I will have more, like in the thousands. That, yeah. I have a few hundred sentences from the dictionary, and that's about it. 500-ish. That's all I need now.
That's a huge increase. That's because now I don't skip anything. It's, oh, I will do it later and I will forget it. I will remember.
Meaning that is this self 1 year milestone. I happen to start later with SuperMemo with AI. It will have modified my approach with SuperMemo, basically.
Remember, oh man, I wanted to put some word, but I don't remember what it was. Now it doesn't happen. Now I have topics. The reason for that is because now I'm using incremental reading on this collection. The speed is also.
When I say incremental reading, I mean that it's not exactly incremental reading. I use the incremental reading flow. So it's already a language thing, and I do the extract and then the close deletion in SuperMemo, but it's already about language. So it's this. Like then I imported a lot of, what was that dictionary? Long format, longman, stuff like this. So then I have the example sentence, but I extract the example sentence, I close the expression, So yeah, it was incremental reading flow, but not incremental reading per se.
Ridiculous. That's because I use the browser to memorize in bulk, and this speed is calculated from this setting. Okay, so look at the number. It ends with 35. Ham. Now I will rate myself from 35, 28. So obviously, since this is calculated with a lot more items that I really memorized myself, every time I do one repetition, the speed is so slow compared to this average that it goes down, considerably down.
Nice to have this in record.
I think I will reach 600, as in I have in the other collection, or something more reasonable. What I mean by memorized is, for instance, this branch. You go here, pretend this is pending, go here, learning, and remember.
Yeah, exactly. And then...
Oh, look, even though...
and then show it. And then remember, you check default, according to default, the optimal interval. So more or less is equal that if it comes from the pending, and I put a successful recall, great. And SuperMemo calculates the starting interval. Same thing.
The repetition count that I did manually.
And as a consequence, the repetition count doesn't increase. That's why I can have more memorized items than repetitions I did. Because this thing in bulk doesn't increase the repetition count.
It's 2,000. It's quite a lot in just 2 months. So overall, with the 2 collections, I did...
And it's even preferred this way, because then you don't skew the algorithm. Because what I did at some degree is, I'm letting SuperMemo know that I have this performance as something genuine, when it is not. That, this guy can recall this many items so quickly, with this high regression rate. No. It's because I'm passing this for the sake of memorizing stuff. It's being logged as genuine repetitions. If I use the bulk operation of set remember, I don't. So even if temporarily it tells me all of these metrics, because are just arithmetics, are being computed mathematically, I didn't modify anything in the algorithm. So it will still adjust to me. Now what happened is that it's optimizing for a performance that is artificially high. And then I will need more time to decrease and adjust to my performance. Still, it's not a big deal, because I have done this in a few days, and it's just a matter of time, and in English I will still be overperforming, because it's a shared deck. If it was Anki, pre-built collection, the SuperMemo. So I still have this artificial thing from very long term. But if I didn't, or I did everything, so instead of 20,000, the 44,000, so the entire collection, it would have been different then.
About 40,000 repetitions. Usually in Anki, I would do on my bright years that I was fully only on Anki. I think I was but more than 200,000 in a single year. So that's quite a difference. Even though I'm using the English collection, that it's easily increasing the repetition count. And finally here, the measure for getting index versus priority. It's more or less flat until here, the top 4% of priority. But keep in mind that most of the items, I would say none of the items I
Okay. Yeah, here this collection is not prioritized. But even though it's so, yeah. Keep in mind the distribution is exponential. So all of this is just the first 1% of the collection. Okay. That's why, yeah, then it's flatter than what I think, because it's exponential.
haven't decided its priority. So it's what is built in, I think. With just few exceptions that I did.
This is still true. For the advanced English collection, I usually don't set priorities by one in this sense. So what I do is, do I keep it? And if I keep it, I will just do by branches, and by the branch I prioritize it in bulk. Not the entire one, but I know, could be, what am I now? This one in grammar. So I do 400 resets in the priority range. And because, hey, this is the 20s, I want this to be in the 60s, when it's very different. I don't cherry pick because, yeah, it's English items. So if it's very heuristic, unlike incremental reading. It's something I will use, something very basic, and when it's good to know, I just don't care. Because I'm not going to see that. So this is going to be outstanding for years, so I'm not going to spend time. And with Korean I do the same thing. Now everything is high priority because it's very elemental and basic, but sometimes I use AI for the sentences I would like to do are a lot harder than usual. It's too soon to do it. I put lower priorities because, yeah, I know this is more complex. That is not the same level.
Missed that element, that item, and that's it. But even though, look, that's the highest, and it's 10%, which is the desired for getting indexed.
Yeah, but yeah, how many elements are there? If the collection is 40,000, let's simplify, 50,000 positions. 0.39 and the neighbors, how many there are? Let's simplify, this is 5. So will be like 100 at maximum, or 120
so
or 80. I don't know the threshold, how it's running down, but yeah, it's about 80. And from those 80, which ones I have memorized and I have done the repetition. Because the other ones, they won't be memorized, therefore they have the priority as a placeholder. But they're not in the priority queue just yet, because they are pending. So yes, they still speaking, they are, but they are being ignored. So they have a priority of 5, or 0.2 or 0.3. Until I don't memorize it, it doesn't take effect in the plot.
Worry about. Even if the mean or the trending line is here, it's just 3%. So those are some two examples very different from my English collection stats are very different from my incremental reading. That's because of the nature of learning a language and incremental reading. And second, and most importantly, because most of this collection it's pre-built.
Yeah, it's pre-built. Later on we will see some examples with once I do Chinese and so on, and we'll see the other example. So when it's language learning, but this is not the pre-built collection.
I haven't done. I have written.
And more recently with Korean. Even though Korean, I will only tell you the branch stats, because I have never had a standalone collection for it.
Created the items in that collection. I'm adding my own stuff. Well, usually for quickness, when I changing collections, I do.
By the way, I don't remember that huge size. My best guess, also because if you notice, do you see the UI is broken, the element data window? This happens when I had a different ratio. I remember back in the day I had a Huawei laptop that instead of the screen, instead of 16:9, the ratio was 16:10. So I had more vertical space, and when I use Git backup solution, when I recorded, then sometimes I had this. I had to create a different layout just for the recording the videos. That was 1080 pixels, not 1080 pixels high, instead of 1200. And because of this, it was also 2K, and the screen was like 13 inches. So a 2K resolution in 13 inches was extremely hard to see, very high density pixels. That's why it explains that I had a huge size. That now I see it with a 24-inch monitor.
Put here, and then I do change where it needs to be. So I have more than 100.
Even on the knowledge tree, the size is, relatively speaking, it's larger than usual.
100 items that I created on those 2 months. And that's all for the year milestone with the English collection.
Incremental 2022!
That's the first video.
Oh,
Incremental greetings.
The video, it's because it's a playlist. That is why it goes to the next one. Let me see the comment. Only one, okay. Great video in interesting comparison between SuperMemo and Anki based on stats. What I mentioned. Even though it's not most illustrative because I don't share Anki. Hey, that's what I did. Here the stats. You can see the many deletions I have, the repetitions I do, the lesson rate. So instead of just believe, you have to believe what I say. You just is in your screen, and it's more like visual, graphic, the comparison. But since a lot of stuff I deleted, or I cannot merge, I cannot tell you at that point. So I will have to create like a backup and delete the repetitions I did from the year 2001 to 2000. Sorry, the repetitions I did after the milestone. So after 2021, delete all of the repetition history. It will be hard because I don't have this on record on video. Even though the point is the same. This is everything about 1 year milestone. So I'm surprised that I think the reaction will be even as long as the 8 months, to my surprise, even though I only had not even 15 minutes of footage. But the thing that splitting collections and this has been insightful, I hope. At least it's good that I did many things, and some like splitting and merging is something that I did multiple times, but every time is different. You will know later on that, hey, now I'm doing the same, but I added my own elements. Hey, now it's not just English, it's also Chinese. And they were not split as a language collection as I do now, but they're on their own, Chinese and English separately. So the insights are slightly different. It's still more nuanced. And the next milestone is 1.5, which is quite large. About 5 videos. I think here overall there are quite a few golden nuggets. Something that is worth, it will be worth some tutoring sessions, I think. Something that is really valuable and hard to get from the documentation or even my videos. And I'm pretty sure, just by evidence, the videos I'm doing, those reactions, do you see? 62 views, 12 views, is getting close to nothing. So eventually I think that I hope the golden nuggets will be reaching someone. I have faith. That's all for the 1 year milestone. See you incrementally.